Hello, and welcome to my documentary about the changing role of women during World War II. At the end of World War II, most women in Britain had jobs. At the end of World War II, men wanted society to turn back to normal, and they needed their jobs back, which meant that they wanted women to stop working in order for them to get their jobs back. This was a big consequence for women because they enjoyed working and wanted to continue working when the men were back. By 1939, young girls were working in the domestic service, their wages being 29p a week. During World War II, women that worked as teachers, nurses, or doctors had to leave their job as soon as they got married. In 1928, a law was passed which stated that any person, male or female, over the age of 21 was able to vote. As one can imagine, women were thrilled to hear this news, since it meant that their role in society was getting more important. Even though women were allowed to vote now, did not mean that the rules that applied to men immediately applied to women. Skilled women that now worked in factories would get £2 and 15 pence a week. The hours were long, and some women had to move to where the factories were in order to work there. Unskilled and skilled men would earn more than any woman. And finally, in 1943, women at the Rolls-Royce factory in Glasgow went on strike. Many women decided that they would like to work in the Women's Voluntary Service, also known as the WVS. This was a very important job since it meant that they would be providing drinks after a bombing raid for firefighters. By 1943, the WVS had 1 million members. Most of the women were more on the old side since all the young women were working in factories and were too tired to do any extra work. Basically, the WVS did whatever was needed. For example, knitting clothes for people. Women that worked in the Auxiliary Territorial Service, also known as ATS, acted as drivers, peeled potatoes, cleaned, and worked on anti-aircraft guns. Even though women worked on guns, Winston Churchill forbid them to ever actually shoot a gun. By July 1942, 217,000 women were members in the ATS. The Auxiliary Air Force was also something run by women. It was known as the AAF. Women cooked and worked on Spitfires and radar stations, which could become quite dangerous. Basically, what they did in the AAF was similar to what they did in the ATS. Furthermore, women were mechanics, engineers, electricians, and deciphered secret codes. There was an organization called Government Code and Cipher School, where secret codes were deciphered. A key member of a code-breaking team was Maris Batty. Her very good work played an important role in 1941 in the Battle of Cape Matapan. Women that worked in GC and CS would have 8-hour-long shifts. During World War II, women became secret agents for the SOE, also known as the Special Operations Executive. Women would be parachuted into occupied land and had to find out information which could help them and their allies. This was an incredibly dangerous job since they could get captured and then tortured, killed, or both. The most famous spies during World War II were Violet Sabo and Odette Churchill. Odette Churchill was one of a very little percentage that survived, whereas Violet got killed. Both of them managed to get the George Cross, which was the highest bravery award any civilian could receive. Two very famous entertaining women were called Vera Lynn and Gracie Fields. Vera Lynn was an amazing singer, and with this gift brought happiness to so many people that were really worried about the Second World War.
We'll never part again if you will take me to your heart again.
song you have just heard was sung by Gracie Fields. It was a very famous one of her songs called Take My Heart Again, which she played a lot during World War II. Gracie Fields was born on the 9th of January in 1898 in England. She became an actress and singer during World War II and played in a film called Sally in Our Alley. Later on, she sang a song called Sally, which ended up becoming her theme. The fact that she became an actress shows that men weren't the only people allowed to do fun stuff anymore. She was also known as a comedian. It was during the war that everybody wanted to have fun and hope. However, after the war, nobody was really that interested anymore. Gracie wanted to entertain people, and the best way to do that was during the war. But after the war, her job just went right down because nobody was interested anymore. As to where Gracie Fields sang, she played in pubs. Because women went to work now and were getting a disposable income for probably the first time ever, the pub times were changed. Since the men were at war, it gave the women time in the evening, and because the government was giving them money, women decided to go to the pub. Because of this, the government set up pub times. At 10:20, a bell would go off, signaling that customers had 10 minutes left to order a drink. At 11:40, everybody got kicked out. This was so that they could get enough sleep and be ready for the next day. These pub times are still reinforced today. During World War II, women didn't only get jobs, but also started using public transport. After World War II, women were finally supported for being housewives. A film called They Also Serve was made, which showed how important it was to be a housewife. By the end of World War II, which was in May 1945, 460,000 women were in the military forces and over 6.5 million women were in the civilian work. Without the help of women, life during World War II would have been very hard and next to impossible. It is ironic because in Germany, Hitler had forbidden women to work since he thought that a woman's place was at home. He believed, however, that it was all right for non-German women to work in factories. Basically, life for women during World War II was changed immensely, and nobody regretted it at all. Take a minute to consider how life could have been if women hadn't been there and helped out during World War II. Thank you very much for listening to my documentary. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot about the change of women during World War II.